Past the expiration date and useless. Looks like a life of poverty for the eternal handyman. Being ragged suits you. She threw a glass of red wine in my face. I realized I had been used by her. Once I lost my value, this is how she treated me. I just wanted her to see the real me, but it was all in vain. My name is Kevin. I'm an only child. My father runs a trading company, and it was fairly large and doing well. In general, people saw me as a spoiled rich kid. When I was in elementary school, I always bragged about everything. I would tell everyone about the latest computer or games I got, or all the albums of my favorite musicians, or every volume of my favorite comics. Kevin, you're always getting stuff bought for you. Lucky you, they would say, looking at me with envy. And more than anything, I boasted about my father, John. My dad is amazing. He runs a trading company. The number of employees is growing every year, and he said he wants to expand even more. Isn't that awesome? Most people praised my bragging, and as a little kid, I was on cloud 9. In 5th grade, as I was bragging as usual, one girl said to me, "Kevin, do you enjoy bragging every day? What's wrong with it? Some kids might say awesome, but do you realize others are getting tired of it? Sophie, are you jealous?" The girl who confronted me. Her name was Sophie Taylor. She was always a top student and the class president. Honestly, I didn't like her type. Jealous? Let me tell you something. It's your father who's amazing, not you. What? If you keep boasting like that, people will start to leave you. People will leave me. Try being more humble when you interact with others. I couldn't respond to her mature words. I went home and kept writing her words in my notebook, over and over. Looking back, I hardly had anyone I could call a friend back then. I was only able to brag because of my father's success. Naturally, people got tired of hearing unwanted bragging and saw me as an obnoxious person, so they drifted away from me. I had no humility and didn't consider others' feelings. After that, I started to dislike myself and spent my last 2 years of elementary school quietly. I began to really want true friends. But rebuilding relationships with classmates who saw me as a jerk was tough. I had to reap what I had sown. "Dad, Mom, I want friends," I confessed to my parents. I asked to be in a different environment for middle school, away from my current classmates. They agreed, and I spent 6 years in a boarding school in the next state. During those 6 years, I kept my father's work a secret and tried to show people the real me. I never bragged and always stayed humble. Gradually, I made friends, and eventually, close friends. My 6 years at boarding school were filled with friendship and encouragement, and they were truly fulfilling. I graduated and got into a prestigious university's business school, aiming to be like my father. My parents were overjoyed and proud. After 6 years in a boarding school, I commuted from home for university. I made more friends who understood me. And in the business school, I was always at the top of my class. My friends gave me the nickname Kev, and I didn't mind it at all. "Kevin, can you help me with this?" asked a beautiful woman who approached me. Her name was Emma. She had taken a year off before joining the same university, so we were in the same year, but she was a year older. Whenever she didn't understand something, she would come to me repeatedly. Seeing the beautiful Emma happily talking with me made my friends look at me with envy. "Kevin, you're amazing. You can do anything." Thanks. I love studying business. Before tests, I would give Emma special one-on-one tutoring, aiming for near-perfect scores. "Kevin, will you go out with me?" Emma said. Our study sessions eventually led to a romantic relationship. I had a smooth university life thanks to my professors, friends, and Emma. It was significant to interact with the people I wanted to. When everyone was busy with job hunting, I didn't participate. I had already decided to work for my parents. One day during university, when I was still hiding the fact that I would work for my parents, Emma asked me about it. "What about job hunting?" "I'm skipping it." "Are you planning to study abroad or go to grad school?" "No, I'm not considering that at all." Facing a barrage of future-related questions, I decided to share a secret with Emma. "Actually, my dad runs a trading company, and I'm planning to work there." "Wow, that's amazing." "I'm jealous. It's my parents who are amazing, not me." I didn't know about your parents. I had no idea you were from a wealthy family. Please keep this a secret. I don't want anyone to know. Got it, I'll keep it a secret. While everyone struggled with job hunting, I spent time in the university library reading various management books. Emma, with her stunning looks, landed a job at a cosmetics company. I joined my father's trading company. Even after graduation and starting our careers, Emma and I continued our relationship. I wanted both my work and personal life to go well. I wanted to marry Emma someday. That's what I was thinking. I had a chance to talk with my dad alone at home. Dad, I need you to do me a favor. I said to my father. I want us to keep our father-son relationship a secret at work. Since late elementary school, I've avoided telling people about your business. Trying to show my true self. I don't want people to look at me with preconceived notions. Is that so? I don't mind, but I want to start from scratch and be judged fairly. I'll do any job. I want people to see and evaluate me for who I am. My father agreed. Society is harsh, Kevin. Try to have various mentors, he advised. With this understanding, I was placed in various departments in the company. My early career was a whirlwind, switching departments every year, learning from different mentors and absorbing knowledge. In short, I was like a handyman, but it was rewarding and fun to be evaluated on my own merits. Occasionally, I would meet Emma privately. I become the chief of PR at the cosmetics company, Emma said. That's amazing, Emma. How about you, Kevin? I'm a handyman, learning a lot from different people. Handyman? What about a title or position? I don't need those right now. But I'm enjoying it. Are you not going to take over for your dad? I can't think about that yet. I'm too busy learning. I see. Oh, by the way, my company does business with your dad's trading company. It would be great if we could collaborate someday. That's great to hear. Let's make it happen. Emma was steadily climbing the ladder. I was moving through various departments, gaining experience at my father's trading company. Though I said I was a handyman, I took pride in the meaningful work I was doing. 8 years passed since I joined my father's company, and I had worked in 10 different departments. I hadn't achieved anything spectacular, but my work was being recognized, and my father heard about my good performance. No one knew about our father-son relationship, so I received fair evaluations. Following my father's advice, I had many mentors inside and outside the company who taught me a lot. Although I felt I hadn't achieved much, others thought I had accomplished plenty. My father was satisfied with the fair evaluations I received within the company. Realizing my personal growth, I found myself at 30. Emma, being a year older, had turned 31. We both started to think about marriage. One day, while spending a relaxed evening at home with my parents, my father spoke to me. Kevin, I'm thinking of starting a new company. That's great news. I want you to work there. I was taken aback by my father's sudden words. But there are many capable people in the company. I've been hearing great things about you from every department. Now is the right time. It's for your future. I see, so we're starting from scratch again. I began to feel excited about my father's proposal. Having seen various departments, it was time for a new venture. My heart was racing. In the current sales department, there's a woman named Sophie Brown. Sophie is very capable. She's an important mentor to me. She taught me a lot. I plan to make her your subordinate. A subordinate? She's my boss, but that sounds reassuring. Do you think I can do it? You can. Go for it. With my father's approval, I started fresh with a new business within the trading company. It was a trading company specializing in the next generation IT, small in size but elite in style. Kevin, I'm excited to be working with you again. Sophie, I look forward to working with you too. Sophie had taught me the intricacies of building client relationships in the sales department. She was petite with a very short haircut. She wore sharp black-rimmed glasses that exuded a capable aura. Beyond her appearance, she was highly competent and a valuable mentor. Even during busy times, she supported me thoroughly. Because I was so focused on the new venture, I grew distant from Emma. She frequently emailed, "When can we meet?" but I couldn't give a good response. When things finally settled down, I invited Emma to dinner as an apology. There was a big meeting at the company that day, so I couldn't leave. I made a reservation at an Italian restaurant for the evening. I was sure she would be delighted. None of that mattered, the meeting was packed with important discussions for the future. I started to sweat, realizing I might be late. Sophie noticed my distress. "Kevin, is everything all right?" "Well, I have an appointment after this." "Don't worry. The meeting is almost over, even though it's running a bit late. If you'd like, I can drive you." "That would be great." "Thank you, Sophie." Finally, the workday ended. We got into the company car and headed to the Italian restaurant I had reserved. "Thank you for your hard work today." "Thanks, Sophie. I appreciate you driving me." "It's my pleasure, Kevin. You're always so humble, I enjoy working with you." "I'm glad to hear that. You're my mentor, after all. I rely on you a lot." "Oh, I should send a message, I might be a bit late." I pulled out my tablet and informed Emma that I would be late. "We'll reach the restaurant in South Manhattan around 6:15 p.m. 15 minutes late. But I have good news to share with her today." "Yes, I'm sure she'll be pleased." We arrived at the Italian restaurant. I thanked Sophie and quickly got out of the car and ran inside. "Long time no see." It had been 3 months since I last saw Emma. She looked a bit annoyed, having waited for over 15 minutes. "Sorry for keeping you waiting." I sat down across from Emma, who was already seated. "You've been busy lately." "Yeah, there's been a lot going on. I had a big meeting today." I planned to tell Emma about my current work after we toasted. She would surely be happy. "How's your dad's trading company doing?" "I think it's doing well. I haven't been there much lately." "You haven't?" "I'm working at a different company now." "Ha, I'm still a handyman." "A handyman." Emma's expression grew more displeased. "Aren't you planning to take over for your dad?" "I don't have the confidence for that yet." "So, no, not right now." "Not planning to take over, are you on assignment somewhere else?" "What's the big deal?" "I'm enjoying it. At my cosmetics company, I'm in the middle of presenting a major business partnership with your dad's trading company." "Wow, that's impressive. I need your help." "I'm not sure how I can help." I was focused on my work at a new IT specialized trading company, and I thought that was a separate matter. "I'm the head of PR now. I have a major project. And at this crucial time, you're off on an assignment, doing miscellaneous tasks. You're really an eternal handyman." "An eternal handyman?" "That's fine by me. I'm okay with it right now. I was thinking about marrying you, but I can't. Back in university, your excellent grades were perfect for helping me with my coursework. In other words, you were my study buddy. I used you for that." "Used me? What are you talking about?" "And because you said you were the heir to a trading company, I stayed with you. I'm turning 33 soon. Everyone around me is getting married and having kids. How long do you expect me to wait? You won't take over for your parents and you're just a handyman on assignment, it's too much. Do you think you can have a good life like this? Your usefulness has an expiration date." "Emma, please calm down." At that moment, a male sommelier approached to pour red wine into our glasses. "Let's calm down. It's been a while since we met. Let's have a toast with this red wine. I have something to tell you. There's nothing left to talk about." "Whoa!" Emma threw the glass of red wine in my face. "You're past your expiration date and useless. An eternal handyman is destined for a life of poverty. Being in rags suits you." "I'm leaving." Emma stood up. "Why would you do that?" Trying to control my anger, I took a handkerchief from my bag and started wiping my face and suit, but the red wine stains were not easy to remove. As Emma turned towards the entrance, I saw a black car pull up. A woman got out and hurried into the restaurant towards me. "Mr. Anderson, are you all right?" Excuse me, can we get some napkins, please? It was Sophie. She asked the staff for napkins and handed them to me. Mr. Anderson? Emma said, surprised. I don't know what happened here, but wine is meant to be enjoyed, not thrown on. Apologize to our CEO. Sophie sternly addressed Emma. CEO? What do you mean? I was going to tell you tonight, but I guess it's ruined now. Did you become the CEO of the assignee company? You keep mentioning an assignment, but actually, I was appointed as the new CEO of my father's new venture during today's meeting. Emma's attitude changed instantly upon hearing this. CEO? Why didn't you tell me sooner? I was planning to discuss it over dinner. By the way, Sophie, why are you here? You left your important tablet in the car, so I came back to deliver it. Thank you, Sophie. You've been a great help. I'll have to cancel dinner and head home now. If you'd like, I can drive you home. Thank you for everything. Emma, thanks for everything. This useless eternal handyman will take his leave. We won't be meeting again. So don't worry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way, please reconsider. I'm glad I saw your true colors. Even I couldn't ignore what you said just now. We can't cause any more trouble here. Sophie, let's go home. I paid for the wine and the cancelled meal, then got into the company car. Emma was left crying alone. In the car, Sophie spoke to me. I'm sorry for the sudden interruption. I didn't mean to intrude on your personal matters. What are you talking about, Sophie? We just weren't compatible. I have no regrets. Right now, work is my priority. There was an awkward silence for a while. With a sigh, I looked out the window, and Sophie continued. Mr. Anderson, you've really changed, in a good way. You're very humble and kind to others. Is that so? You mentioned that before we went to the restaurant. Have I changed that much since our sales department days? More than just the sales department days. More than just that? Do you remember when I said, try being more humble when you interact with others? What? Wait a minute. Are you Sophie Taylor, the class president from elementary school? She nodded. Sophie, my classmate from elementary school, had changed her name to Sophie Brown after her father passed away during high school and she reverted to her mother's maiden name. I couldn't hide my surprise at how different and mature she looked compared to her younger self. When you told me that, I wrote it in my notebook over and over. I was so frustrated back then, determined to prove you wrong someday. You had such a shocked look on your face back then. Your eyes were wide open, and you were frozen. That was 20 years ago. Feeling a sense of nostalgia, we naturally started talking like old classmates rather than in a formal business manner. It felt like a mini reunion inside the car. I shared with her how I had changed my mindset and attended a boarding school in the neighboring state. Looks like my lightning bolt worked back then, Sophie said with a laugh. It sure did, almost too well. It nearly knocked me out, I replied. But I've watched you grow every day, and now you've become the CEO everyone recognizes. When I was asked to be your subordinate, I was thrilled. You're still the best mentor, Sophie. Or rather, I should say in a professional way, Ms. Brown, you're the best mentor. Thank you, I will continue to do my best. We're almost at your home, Mr. Anderson. Our mini reunion in the car was filled with laughter and tears, ending on a happy note. After parting ways with Emma, I was able to focus solely on work without distractions. Even with the title of CEO, I still had to handle various tasks and ensure I treated each employee with respect and care. I approached everyone with utmost humility. This was true throughout boarding school and university. When you treat people with humility, they naturally gather around you. In elementary school, my bragging drove people away, but having a mentor like Sophie taught me the importance of humility. Maybe I am a fortunate person. My mentor from elementary school was now my secretary and a significant part of my life. I found myself increasingly drawn to her as a person. Life is unpredictable. It's the unpredictability that makes it interesting. With a positive outlook, you can overcome difficulties and turn them into opportunities. With the help of many people, my company grew rapidly, even expanding internationally. My father's foresight was impressive. I still can't surpass him, and I hoped he would always be that insurmountable challenge. Unfortunately, Emma's cosmetics company, which relied on my father's trading company, couldn't secure a partnership and had to downsize. They seemed to be struggling financially. Emma likely had some realizations through this experience, and I hoped she would use it to grow stronger. As for my personal life, I proposed to a woman. She had been a bit daunting in elementary school, but now she was the person I loved most in the world. Sophie, congratulations. You did amazing. Thank you, Kevin. We're a family of 4 now. Today was the due date. I managed to be there just in time. Sophie and I welcomed healthy twin boys. Sophie had become my best partner in both personal and professional life. I couldn't be more excited about the future. Hey everyone! Look who's here, Mr. Low Education. Mike's obnoxious voice echoed through the reunion hall. He was practically shouting, mocking me as loudly as he could. Our former classmates began turning to see what was happening. I couldn't understand why Mike remained so unpleasant just as he was back in the day, and frankly I didn't want to understand. I could only sigh in frustration. Seeing no reaction from me, Mike's taunts escalated. A guy like you with a low education doesn't belong to this reunion. What are you even doing here? Even I couldn't stay silent any longer with his insults to me. It was time to tell Mike the real reason why I attended this reunion. I decided to finally speak up. Suddenly, Mike, who had been so full of himself, started trembling and collapsed to his knees. My name is Thomas, and I'm 33 years old. Currently, I work as an investigator for a small detective agency. I've always admired my father, who worked as a police officer. He was assigned to patrol duty, often engaging with the community and participating in service activities. Therefore, my father was a police officer loved by everyone. My mother supported him, and we lived happily as a family. My father always told me that if I wanted to become a police officer, I had to study hard, so I did. As a result, I was able to pass the entrance exam for a prestigious private middle school. I vowed to work even harder to become a police officer like my father, but then something happened on the day of the entrance ceremony. Since my father was at work, I attended the ceremony with my mother. There were many luxury cars parked in front of the school gate. While I was astonished by the sight, a boy and his mother, likely there for the ceremony as well, got out of one of the cars. The boy looked at me with a smirk. His mother then approached my mother. "Lisa, it's been so long. I didn't know they'd end up at the same middle school. Can you afford such an expensive school?" The boy's mother sounded condescending. My mother, unfazed, replied with a smile, "Yes, it's for my son's dream. We'll manage just fine. I don't want to be at the same school as you. Don't bother me too much." The boy glared at me. His mother told her son while laughing, "Don't worry, you probably won't have to interact with poor people like them." My mother responded to the spiteful pair with, "I look forward to the years ahead." She looked sad, though. The boy's mother snickered and walked away with her son. What unpleasant people. I whispered to my mother, "Do you know those people? They seem really awful." My mother looked at me with a wry smile. "The boy's father is your father's colleague. You've met them before, but you probably don't remember. That boy's name is Mike." I didn't remember Mike at all. What? How can someone who's also a police officer like Dad look down on us like that? As I wasn't able to comprehend, I pressed my mother for an explanation. She looked troubled. "He used to be a much nicer person." And then, she began to tell me about the unpleasant Mike and his family. Mike's father had entered the police academy at the same time as my father and became a police officer. During their training period, they were good friends and often hung out together. But a few years later, my father chose to work at a local police station to engage with the community, while Mike's father chose to become a detective. At first, our families remained close, but gradually we drifted apart. My father had become a police officer with just a high school diploma, while Mike's father graduated from a prestigious college and worked as an elite detective. As they continued in their careers, they no longer had much in common. Mike's father earned a significantly higher salary than my father, and Mike's mother's personality changed dramatically. as my mother sadly explained. Can money really change a person's character? I listened intently to my mother's story. You must never judge people by their money or status, Thomas. Promise me you'll never be like that, my mother said, looking me in the eye. At that moment, I vowed never to become like Mike's family. I decided to avoid Mike as much as possible in middle school. After the entrance ceremony, I walked into the classroom with that resolve. My mother and I were both shocked. Mike was seated right next to me. This must be some kind of cruel joke. I cursed my luck. Mike looked at me with a disgusted expression. You've got to be kidding. Having a poor kid like you next to me is going to make it impossible to concentrate. I wanted to throw those words right back at him. I didn't want to sit next to him either. Then, as if joining in on Mike's taunts, his mother said, Thomas, don't you dare interfere with my son. Did they both just want to look down on me? I was too stunned to respond. My first day of middle school turned out to be a nightmare. On the way home, my mother looked at me with concern. Do you think you can get along with Mike? After thinking for a moment, I replied, I don't think we'll be friends, but I'll try not to get involved with him too much. My mother looked slightly relieved. In truth, I never wanted to have anything to do with such rude people again, but being in the same class, I had no choice. Still, I was filled with anxiety about my new life in middle school. And my fears came true. The next day, my worried mother saw me off to school. When I arrived, I found Mike's belongings on my desk. Mike was chatting happily with other classmates. This is my seat, I said hesitantly to Mike. But he ignored me, even though I was sure he heard me. I spoke even louder to him again. Hey! This is my seat. Mike turned to me with a smirk. Oops, my bad. I thought your seat was for storing my stuff, he said mockingly and began to remove his things from my desk. I was filled with anger. However, causing a scene here would only make things worse. I tried so hard to keep my emotions in check. Mike laughed at me and walked away. I could only sigh. The thought of spending 3 years with someone like him was suffocating. Could I really get through this? I felt increasingly anxious. Just then, a classmate approached my desk and started talking to me. Mike was giving you a hard time already. Don't mind him. He's always like that. It was Jacob, who sat behind me. He had graduated from the same elementary school as Mike and told me that Mike had bullied him in the past, too. He's always bragging about his wealth and making everyone else feel small. Jacob stood up for me. From that point on, Mike continued to hurl insults at me, but Jacob always had my back, making my time in middle school more bearable. My middle school had a high school attached, so inevitably, Mike and I ended up in the same high school. But with friends who supported me, I wasn't as worried. By the time we reached senior year, I was unsure about my future path. I wondered if I should go to college to become a police officer like my father. My father had become a police officer with just a high school diploma. If I were to follow in his footsteps, I wouldn't need to go to college. Even if you want to be a police officer, having a good education is important. I want you to go to college, my mother insisted. My father, in contrast, said, Thomas, it's your life. Do what you want. Your mother and I will support whatever decision you make. Hearing this from my father, I decided not to go to college. Thomas, you're not going to college? Jacob asked with wide-eyed. I explained that I wanted to become a police officer like my father and would take the exam after high school. Jacob, surprised but supportive, said, Wow, Thomas. That's awesome. Good luck. Then a familiar and unpleasant voice interrupted. Not going to college? You just don't want to study, do you? You'll never become a police officer. Stop joking around. Mike's words stung. I knew I wasn't exceptionally smart or athletic. I was well aware that I might not become a police officer. Hearing it from Mike made it even more painful. Seeing this, Jacob raised his voice in my defense. Mike, that's too much. You don't know if he can make it until he tries. What, can you see the future now? Mike snorted at Jacob's words. There's no way a scrawny guy like him can be a police officer. If people like him become one, we're doomed. Jacob, you should choose your friends more wisely. Thomas is my best friend. And I doubt you have anyone you'd call a friend. Your personality is the reason why. Jacob grabbed my arm and led me away from Mike. I was deeply moved by Jacob's words. I consider you my best friend too, Jacob. I'll work hard for the police exam. I'll prove Mike wrong. Jacob smiled and nodded yes. However, my dream quickly crumbled. Despite my efforts, I failed the police exam. I was devastated, and the tears wouldn't stop. Seeing this, my father said gently, "There are many ways to help people besides being a police officer. Failing one exam isn't the end. You're full of potential." My father always knew the right thing to say. I respected him deeply. As expected, Mike belittled me even more when he found out I hadn't passed the police exam. "I knew you were useless." I had no retort. On the day of my high school graduation, I left the school as if I were fleeing. I didn't want to hear anything more from Mike. After graduating, I believed I would never have to see the annoying Mike again. I was convinced of that. After graduation, I followed my father's advice and searched for a job where I could help others. That's when I found a small detective agency. Being a detective involves investigating on behalf of clients who are troubled. I thought this could be a way for me to help people. With this in mind, I went for an interview. The person who interviewed me was Mary, the female director of the agency. I passionately explained my reasons for wanting the job, and Mary hired me on the spot. At first, my parents were surprised that I took a job at a detective agency, but now they support me. I joined the agency with no experience in detective work, but Mary patiently taught me everything, and I quickly became competent at my job. 15 years later, I had become proficient in my work. One day, a woman named Jessica came to our agency for a consultation. "I think my fiancé might be cheating on me. Could you investigate?" Jessica spoke with tears in her eyes, looking very sad. More than half of the people who come to our agency seek help with infidelity investigations. They all have sad expressions on their faces. Somehow, I want to make them smile. I always conduct my research with that feeling in mind. "I understand. I will investigate thoroughly." Hearing my words, Jessica began to cry. "No matter the outcome, I just want to know the truth." "Thank you, Thomas." She said this while gripping my hand. I couldn't stand the thought of someone betraying such a wonderful woman. Determined to resolve this case, I began the investigation. Being a detective is not easy. I gather as much information as possible about the subject, stake out, conduct interviews, and sometimes go undercover depending on the situation. My work hours are irregular, with early mornings and late nights. But I never found it burdensome. The gratitude I received from clients at the end of an investigation made it all worthwhile. I planned to start the stakeout on Jessica's fiancé the next day. However, when I woke up, my mother looked distressed. "Thomas, I think I've thrown out my back. It hurts so much I can't stand up." She was clutching her back in pain. My father works at the police station, so he can't take time off. I contacted Mary and decided to take my mother to the hospital that day. Despite her back pain, I managed to get my mother into the car and headed to the orthopedic clinic. My mother had always been healthy and had never needed to go to the hospital before. Therefore, I visited an orthopedic clinic I found on the internet. The clinic was very clean and well maintained. I helped my mother to a sofa in the waiting room and completed the registration. In no time, my mother's name was called, and I accompanied her to the examination room. To my shock, the doctor was none other than Mike. My mother was equally stunned, her eyes wide with surprise. "Thomas." As soon as Mike saw me, he exclaimed in surprise. "Mike, I didn't know you were a doctor here." When I said this, Mike started laughing. "While you were messing around with just a high school diploma, I was studying hard and graduated from medical school. Thanks to my abilities, I became a doctor and even own my own clinic. It's not too late for you to start studying, Thomas." My mother and I were both stunned by Mike's words. Even after 15 years, Mike hadn't changed at all. Feeling bewildered, I watched as Mike began examining my mother with the efficiency of a conveyor belt. During the examination, he continued to make condescending remarks towards me. You didn't become a police officer because you're incompetent. If you were as talented as I am, things would be different. Even the nurse in the examination room looked shocked by his comments. Both my mother and I just wanted to leave the clinic as quickly as possible. After the examination, we rushed out of the room, only to hear Mike and the nurse laughing behind us. That guy? He was my classmate, but he's just a high school graduate. Can you believe it? Unbelievable. I was seething with anger. What's so bad about being a high school graduate? I wasn't causing any harm to anyone. My body began to shake with rage. Seeing my state, my mother whispered, "Thomas, calm down. That man is a terrible person. It's not worth your time to respond to him. People like him will get a bad karma eventually." Bad karma, yes. I hoped Mike would get what he deserved. After settling the bill, I returned home with a heavy heart. Before entering the house, I checked the mailbox and found a postcard inside. My name was written on the address. A postcard for me? Curiously, I opened it and saw it was an invitation to a middle school reunion. It was also accompanied by a note that we hope you will join us. A reunion. I had mixed feelings about it. Mike would likely be there. Who knows what he'd say this time? The memory of Mike's behavior at the clinic flashed through my mind. Just then, my phone rang. Hello? Jacob. It's been a while. What's up? It was a call from Jacob after a long time. Even after graduating high school, I kept in touch with Jacob a few times a year. He sounded excited on the phone. You got the reunion invitation, right? You're coming, right? Hearing his words, I felt conflicted. I want to, but Mike will probably be there, and I'm not sure if I want to deal with that. Jacob, however, was adamant about convincing me. Don't let that stop you. The reunion is at that fancy hotel. Let's have some good drinks and reminisce. Alright, I'll go. With Jacob's enthusiastic persuasion, I decided to attend the reunion. Even though I had decided, my heart wasn't in it. I really didn't want to see Mike again. Nevertheless, the day of the reunion was approaching fast. I even took the day off work for it. Mary smiled and said, "Enjoy your reunion. Have a great time," but honestly, I wasn't looking forward to it. On the morning of the reunion, I reluctantly started getting ready. My mother, concerned, had bought me a new shirt for the occasion, so I put it on. It was the first time since becoming an adult that my mother had bought me clothes. You look great. Walk into that reunion with confidence. Don't let Mike get to you. She looked me straight in the eye as she said this. Though my mother had always maintained a calm demeanor in front of Mike, every time he said something cruel to me, it broke her heart. Don't worry, Mom. There's no way I'll let Mike beat me. That's right. With my mother seeing me off, I left the house and headed to the fancy hotel where the reunion was being held. When I arrived and entered the restaurant, many of my former classmates were already there. Jacob spotted me and eagerly approached. Hey! Glad you made it. Let's have some good drinks and catch up. He handed me a glass of wine. As we toasted, I noticed some commotion at the back of the restaurant. I looked over and saw Mike standing with a beautiful woman. Mike was introducing her to our classmates. This is my fiancée, Rachel. She's the daughter of the director of T Hospital. We're getting married soon. And her father is going to invest a lot of money into my clinic. My clinic is going to expand even more. Mike boasted to our classmates. They looked at him with envy, amazed that he was marrying such a beautiful and wealthy woman. I quickly turned my attention back to Jacob. I thought nothing good would come from being involved with Mike. But Mike soon noticed me and shouted loudly. Hey everyone! Look who decided to show up, Mr. Low Education. The restaurant buzzed with excitement, and all eyes turned to me. I instinctively looked down. Why did I have to be humiliated by Mike at what was supposed to be a fun reunion? As I remained silent, Mike continued to hurl insults. This reunion isn't for someone like you with no education. Why are you even here? Mike approached me arrogantly. I could feel my body trembling with anger. Jacob, noticing this, couldn't stay silent. He shouted angrily. Mike, that's enough. Don't you know there's a line you shouldn't cross? You're 33 years old, for goodness sake. But Mike wasn't fazed by Jacob's words. Instead, he laughed. What I'm saying is the truth. This reunion is for elites. Mike then glared at me. It's true that many of our classmates had high-paying jobs, but there was a better way to express it. To make matters worse, Mike began to insult my parents. Well, your parents were probably just as uneducated and useless. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. That was the last straw. I couldn't understand why someone who didn't know my parents well would speak so poorly of them. My parents are not useless. The one who's useless is you, Mike. What did you say? Mike's face turned red with anger, and his expression grew harsher. Rachel, standing next to him, looked confused. I didn't come to this reunion to see you, Mike. Seeing you is the last thing I wanted to do. Then why did you come? Because I have something to tell you. I glared at Mike. He laughed derisively. What could you possibly want to say? Are you going to ask for a job at my clinic? Sorry, but we don't hire high school graduates. Good grief. Mike is really a clueless guy. Sometimes, people like him need to be confronted with the truth. No, that's not it. I can tell you now, but are you sure you want to hear it? What the hell are you talking about? Just spit it out. I took a deep breath and looked Mike in the eyes. Mike, do you know someone named Jessica? Huh? Mike's face instantly turned pale. Everyone in the restaurant looked on curiously. I don't know anyone by that name. Mike was clearly panicking. Rachel, looking puzzled, asked Mike, who is Jessica? Mike insisted he didn't know her. Let me ask you again, are you sure you don't know her? I said I don't know her. How many times do I have to say it? I sighed. At that moment, a loud voice echoed from the restaurant entrance. How could you do this to me? You said you wanted to marry me. Who is this woman? Jessica. What are you doing here? Jessica had entered the restaurant. Rachel, her eyes wide with shock, said, You told her you wanted to marry her? What is going on? Mike, his face ashen, desperately tried to make excuses. Rachel, it's not like that. She's just a friend. I'm not just a friend. You said you loved me. That's why I lent you money. The venue was in an uproar. Everyone was watching the commotion, whispering about it. I never borrowed any money. It's all lies. Jessica began to cry at Mike's words. Rachel seemed to believe Mike. But I couldn't let him get away with this. It was time to reveal the truth to everyone. Mike, you got engaged to Rachel while you were still engaged to Jessica. Who do you think you are? Do you think you're a detective or something? You can't bring me down. I handed Mike my business card. I work for a detective agency, and Jessica hired me to investigate your cheating. What? Yes, the woman who had just walked in was Jessica, my client. When she first came to our agency and showed me Mike's photo, I was shocked. But knowing Mike, it wasn't surprising, so I took on the case. Mike had promised to marry Jessica and borrowed a large sum of money from her, while also promising to marry Rachel and even meeting her parents. During my investigation, when my mother had a back injury, I purposely went to Mike's clinic. Around the same time, I received the invitation to the reunion and a call from Jacob. Jacob informed me that Mike and his fiancée would be attending the reunion. I initially thought Jessica was the fiancée attending the reunion, but when I told her, she was surprised. I never heard about any reunion from Mike. I want to see who this other woman is. Jessica's face twisted with anger. I decided to bring Jessica to the reunion to uncover the truth. I wonder how Mike will react if Jessica shows up at the reunion. There will be no way for him to make excuses anymore. I believed so. I thrust several photos at the stunned Mike, ready to get to the heart of the matter. Rachel peeked at the photos too. The pictures showed Mike and Jessica in a close embrace. The moment Mike saw them, he snatched them from me and tore them to shreds. Rachel stared at Mike in disbelief. These are fabricated. All lies. Even now, Mike was trying to escape the truth. I sighed. Tell me the truth. Rachel looked at Mike with a face that seemed on the verge of tears. Mike grasped her hand, desperately whispering, "The only one I love is you, Rachel." Suddenly, a woman who had been watching the scene unfolded walked towards Mike. It was Emily. In middle school, she hadn't been particularly noticeable, but 15 years later, she had become quite beautiful. "Mike, you promised to marry me too, didn't you? So you were seeing 3 women at the same time?" Emily's words sent a wave of shock through the restaurant. Even I didn't know about this and couldn't help but do a double take at Emily. Mike was visibly shaken, trembling uncontrollably. "How many women have you deceived? I can't believe this. I'm breaking up with you. And you'd better repay all the money you borrowed. I'll be claiming damages too." Jessica stormed out of the restaurant in fury. Rachel, now red-faced with anger, confronted Mike. "So you were deceiving me too? How dare you? I'm calling off the wedding. Goodbye." "No. If the wedding is called off, I won't get the investment for my clinic. I'll make sure my father knows. The investment is off." "Obviously." "Rachel. Please, don't say that." Rachel said that and left the restaurant just like Jessica. Mike, in a panic, chased after Rachel and left the restaurant. The restaurant fell silent. Cheating scum. Lost all respect for him. The room buzzed with condemnation of Mike's actions. Some classmates were consoling Emily. Finally, justice is served. Indeed. I was glad to have exposed Mike's true nature to everyone. Later, I handed Jessica the investigation report. That awful man was not worth it. "I'll be claiming damages as soon as possible," she said, smiling. Eventually, Mike ended up paying a substantial amount in damages to Jessica, Rachel, and Emily. News of Mike's deceit spread throughout the town, and his clinic had fewer and fewer patients. With the clinic struggling to stay afloat, Mike had to take out significant loans, but eventually, he couldn't keep up and had to close the clinic. On the last day, Mike was reportedly bawling his eyes out in a pitiful display. This was the result of his actions. I hope, even though it might be too late, that Mike never repeats his mistakes and lives without causing trouble for others. Today, as always, I continue my work as a detective, helping those in need.
"You guys are the worst. Stripping me naked. Unbelievable." As she shouted, my boss started hitting me with her fists. Her blows were so powerful, it was hard to believe she'd been out of breath just moments ago. Several of her pinches landed clean hits on my face, leaving me with bruises that would appear later on. All I did was help my boss when she fell, and this is the treatment I get. Some days later, I was called into the CEO's office, where the boss I had helped was waiting. Stripping a woman in such a place, you seem unaware of the gravity of your actions. It's unforgivable, both as a professional and as a person. Your time here is over, I'm afraid. As she scolded me, the door opened and Mr. Thompson, the CEO, walked in. "What's all this noise? I could hear it from outside. What are you so angry about?" This man took advantage of my unconscious state to humiliate me. "I see. Then, I'm afraid you'll have to take responsibility for your actions." From that day on, my life took a dramatic turn. As I was getting dressed for work in the morning, I could see dead leaves falling outside my window. Autumn is coming. That was quick. Looking down to put on my socks, I noticed the scar on the top of my right foot. Every time I see the scar, bitter memories from high school come flooding back. "Would you consider dating me?" "Yeah, sure." My first love was in my freshman year of high school, a rather late start for a first love. On the first day in high school, during self-introductions in class, I fell for her at first sight. She was petite and pretty. She was my first love. Unable to bear seeing her talk to other boys, I had nothing but dating her on my mind and called her to the back gate of the school to confess my feelings to her. She readily agreed, and I was overjoyed, on cloud 9. But that happiness lasted only a week. Maxwell, I'm sorry. I've been asked out by the senior. I've always liked him. I can go out with you after all. Every time I think back to those days, my foot's car aches. Even at 25, I still can erase the heartbreak from high school. It's no wonder I've been reluctant to date women up to this age. My first love became a trauma, and the fear of being dumped scares me. Apparently, a male-female duo of singers used to sing a song called Islands in the Stream. Just like the theme of the song, where a loving couple sets out towards the stream, rowing together towards the future with the belief that everything will be okay. My parents nurtured their love in the same way, named me after the Old English term for grand stream as a testament to the love they found in each other. I'm a really pathetic guy who still drags around a broken heart from the distant past, even though my name is filled with the idea of believing in love without worrying about it. After putting on my socks and finishing my preparations, I leave for work. Swaying in the packed train, worrying about not to step on this woman's feet or not to bump other man with my elbow. I'm already tired by the time I arrive at the office. Being worrying too much is in my nature, but it's disheartening to do this every day. Arriving at the office feeling drained. The company I work for is a fairly large travel agency. I chose this company not because I had a particular passion, but because I liked the phrase "a company built by all its employees" and joined following my seminar professor's recommendation. Morning, Max. Good morning, Max. At the office, I'm not called by my true name of Maxwell, but by the nickname, Max. My laid-back personality doesn't stand out much, but my rare name makes me memorable to new acquaintances, so I guess I benefit from my name in that regard. As I sat down at my desk, my colleagues, Alex and Ryan, came over. "Let's go to the diner for lunch today." The ever-cheerful Alex approaches me with a light-hearted tone from the morning. "I've got a packed lunch today, so I'll eat in the kitchen." Ryan, a firm guy, seems to have a lunch prepared by his girlfriend. "Man, a love-packed lunch, huh? You should ask your girlfriend to do that, too. She's not great at cooking, so it's better to eat out." Both of them have girlfriends. Sometimes I feel envious hearing about their girlfriends, but it has nothing to do with me. I have work to focus on. I always tell myself that to shake off my slight feeling of loneliness. "Hey, Max, good morning." "Hi, Tyler, good morning." Our manager, Tyler, is a kind and caring senior. Since I was a newcomer, I've been learning the ropes from him, and the three of us respect Tyler a lot. After greeting Tyler, I started preparing for my outside work. Generally, my job involves being outside, but when my foot is acting up, I'm allowed to do office work instead. Sometimes, I get severe pain in the area of my foot injury, and the persistent memory of high school might be partly due to this recurring pain. Only my colleagues Alex, Ryan, and Tyler know about my foot condition. Tyler, understanding my situation, assigns me to analyze customer information and support sales when I'm working indoors. One day, when my foot was particularly bad, I was desk-bound from the morning. Around 10 a.m., the branch manager from the headquarters, Sierra, came to our office. She often visits our branch for meetings with Tyler. Since most male employees are out, my presence in the office is quite noticeable. Whenever she's around, she tends to pick on me for one thing or another. "If you're working indoors, you should propose some new travel plans. It's getting harder and harder these days to find people who wait for instructions and don't move unless their boss tells them to." Sierra is a beautiful woman but has a tough personality. For someone like me, who usually works under the kind Tyler, she's a difficult person to deal with. "Sierra, what do you think about including the senior citizen tour I've been working on in this winter's campaign? I believe it's turned out to be quite interesting." Our colleague, Brandon, is trying to impress Sierra with his idea. He's competent, but his self-centered nature and lack of empathy are off-putting. He seems to dislike that I work indoors instead of going outside work and often makes snide remarks about it. I've been busy with outside work, but I managed to come up with this plan in the little time I had. Could you consider it? It's clearly a dig at me. Sierra rebukes him to go thrift Tyler first, and Brandon looks disappointed. But it's admirable, coming up with new ideas while also doing outside work. You, doing indoor work, should take a leaf out of his book. Brandon smirks at me from the corner of his eye as Sierra speaks. I guess I'm just part of the laid-back generation. I mutter to myself, resigned, and go back to the work I've been interrupted from. Man, it's been a while since the three of us went out like this. Ryan says cheerfully, looking out the window. Let's have a blast today. Come on, Max, take this. Ryan, driving, and Alex, in the passenger seat munching on fries, passes a shake he bought at a drive-thru restaurant to me in the back seat. As autumn deepens, the three of us were heading to a hot spring in the countryside, thinking of seeing the fall foliage. We exit the highway and follow the signs towards the hot springs. Our company offers a day-use plan as a welfare benefit. Once a month, we get a Sunday off to refresh ourselves. Using this, the three of us took a Monday off to go on a 2-day hot spring resort trip. As it's Sunday, we get caught in a traffic jam entering the hot spring town. Looking at the pedestrians, there seem to be many foreign tourists. There sure are a lot of foreigners at the resort. I should have learned foreign languages more. You can do it still. I can't think of anything new anymore. You're good, fluent in French. Alex, who studied engineering, has been struggling with guiding the increasing number of foreign tourists lately. Ryan, a French literature graduate, has no trouble with that. It's unusual, coming to a travel company from an engineering background. Wouldn't you have been better off at a manufacturer or something? Well, I considered it, but I wanted a job that involves interacting with people. Maybe it's just my personality. In our company, people with a science background are rare. If it's the right job for you, isn't that what matters? While we were having that conversation, we arrived at our destination, the hotel. This hotel is a hidden gem among many hot spring resort hotels. No matter which room you choose, the view from the window is picturesque and beautiful. The food is quite lavish for the price, and above all, the hot spring is exceptional. Soaking in the hot spring jacuzzi built along the riverbank, with maple leaves fluttering down and the babbling of the river, is truly soothing. Staying here on a Sunday is a privilege of working at a travel agency. We checked into our reserved room, peered out the window at the trees starting to show their autumn colors and the gently flowing river beneath them, then changed into our swimsuits and headed for the jacuzzi. Wow, this is great. It was still early, around 4 p.m., and there were no other guests around. Soaking in the whirlpool tub, we felt refreshed both physically and mentally. As we chatted with the sound of the river flow in the background, the conversation turned to their girlfriends. Ryan asked Alex about his plans. Are you going to marry your girlfriend, Alex? I haven't thought about it much, but maybe when the time comes. What about you? You're planning to get married soon, right? Maybe next year. She's been urging me to hurry up. Max, aren't you going to find a girlfriend? There it was again. Whenever this topic comes up, I, who have no prospects, find myself at a loss. I'm fine for now. Work's keeping me busy. You're always such a workaholic. Having a girlfriend might give you even more motivation. Well, if the opportunity arises. I smoothly dodged Ryan's question and steered the conversation in another direction. But Sierra can be really hard. She's always picking on me, and it's really stressing me out. I don't think anyone would like her with that personality. Probably going to be single for life. As soon as Alex finished speaking, Ryan turned the conversation back to me. She doesn't bother us like that, so maybe she's got a thing for you, you know. People say boys are mean to the girls they like, right? Cut it out. Even if she's attractive, her personality's not my type. Oh yes, that's true. Alex agreed, and as our conversation grew lively, we didn't realize our voices had gotten louder until we heard a cough from afar, and Alex quickly covered his mouth. Oops, someone's here. Ryan whispered quietly, mindful of the neighbors. Making noise could get us mentioned on the internet and cause trouble for this hotel. Being sensitive to customer complaints due to our line of work, we decided to keep our voices down. After a long soak in the jacuzzi, we started feeling a bit lightheaded and decided to head back to our room. As we exited the hot spring, we stopped in our tracks at the sight of a woman's back. Isn't that Sierra? Alex whispered, and upon closer inspection, it was indeed Sierra. We quietly returned to the tub and waited for Sierra to walk away. Why is she here? Oh, that was Sierra who coughed just now, wasn't it? The warmth drained from my body as Alex spoke. Did she hear our conversation? I said, and we all looked at each other, unsure of what to do next. After about 10 minutes, thinking it was probably safe now, we cautiously left the tub and started walking down the corridor. As we headed back to our room, careful not to run into Sierra, we noticed someone leaning against the wall ahead. As we got closer, we realized it was Sierra. We were debating whether to pretend we hadn't seen her and turn back when Ryan suggested we should at least greet her, so we approached her. But just as we were about to speak, Sierra suddenly collapsed in front of us. We rushed to her side and called out to her. Sierra, are you okay? Shaking her and calling out, there was no response. I called out again, can you hear me? And when I put my ear to her mouth, she wasn't breathing. There was no movement in her chest to indicate she was breathing either. Realizing the severity of the situation, I quickly asked Alex for help. Alex, go get an AED. Okay, got it. I remembered that during the COVID-19 pandemic, we were taught that chest compressions alone could be sufficient, though normally CPR would include both chest compressions and rescue breaths. In my neighborhood association, we regularly conduct disaster drills, and being one of the younger participants, I often attend these drills where I learned life-saving techniques, including this guidance. Ryan, please get something thin cloth and a dry towel. Also, call 911. Got it. After giving Ryan these instructions, I checked each step carefully before placing my hands on Sierra's chest to start chest compressions. Ryan returned first, so I placed the thin fabric he brought over Sierra's mouth and continued with the chest compressions. Are you sure it's okay to press that hard? Yup, it's okay. It won't mean anything unless it's done with this much force continuously. Ryan was worried seeing Sierra's body moving up and down, but I was sweating and panting from the effort, especially after coming out of the hot tub. Hey, I got it. Alex had brought back the borrowed AED and was watching my chest compressions. I checked Sierra's breath again, but there was still no sign of her breathing returning. It's no use, let's use the AED. I hurriedly told Alex to open the AED as I undid Sierra's clothes. This is... Both Ryan and I, and Alex holding the electrode pads, were taken aback. Spread across Sierra's beautiful body, just out of the hot tub, were scars from burns. Regaining my composure, I took the electrode pads from Alex, placed them in their proper positions, covered the exposed skin with a towel, moved Ryan and Alex aside, and turned on the AED. After the voice instructions finished, I resumed chest compressions immediately. It looks like she's breathing. At Ryan's voice, I removed the thin cloth from her mouth, and indeed, Sierra had started breathing again. Yes. Alex cheered as Sierra woke up. Can you hear me, Sierra? As I shouted, she looked at me and tried to sit up. Good. It seems you're going to be okay." As I expressed my relief, Sierra noticed her clothes were undone, quickly covered herself, and started yelling at us. "You guys are the worst. Stripping me naked. Unbelievable." She began hitting me like a child. As Alex and Ryan tried to intervene, but Sierra wouldn't stop. Several of her pinches landed clean hits on my face, which later turned into bruises. The commotion attracted the hotel staff and guests, creating a huge scene with a crowd forming around us. "Sierra, what are you doing?" Then I heard a familiar voice from among the guests and turned to see Tyler walking towards us. He pulled Sierra away from me as the paramedics arrived. Ryan explained the situation, and the paramedics took Sierra and Tyler to the hospital. "Why is Tyler here? Was he here incognito?" As we watched the two of them being escorted to the ambulance by the paramedics, the three of us just stood there dumbfounded. 2 days later, when I arrived at work, Alex and Ryan were already there, and Alex spoke to me in a low voice. "That was quite a mess, right? Never expected Sierra and Tyler to be there." Then Ryan mentioned that Tyler was off today. He called this morning, said he's taking the day off, and that any documents due today should be handled by Max. Really, that document has so much data, there's no way I can finish it by today. Guess there's no helping it. I'll give you a hand for 2 days worth of lunches. With a grin, Alex nodded and started working on the document. "I'll settle for 3 cans of coffee." With that, Ryan also opened the shared folder and began working on the customer data compilation that Tyler had left unfinished. Always taking advantage of me. Despite my thoughts, I was grateful for their support. The next day, when I arrived at the office, there was a noticeable buzz. Dropping my bag at my desk, I noticed everyone looking at me. What? Did I do something? That's when Tyler instructed me to head to the headquarters immediately. It turns out, Mr. Thompson had called first thing in the morning, requesting my presence at the headquarters as soon as I arrived at work. "What did you do?" "I haven't done anything." While whispering with Ryan, Tyler urged me to hurry up, and I quickly made my way to the headquarters. Upon arriving, a receptionist escorted me to the president's office. Opening the door, I was met with Sierra standing there with an angry expression. "Sierra, you're here too." Despite my greeting, she just ignored me and glared. After a while, she finally spoke up. "You're Maxwell, right? I had to call you here because you haven't come to apologize." Confused by her demand for an apology, I asked for clarification. "To think you're not even aware. Stripping a woman in such a place. You don't seem to realize the gravity of what you've done. This is unforgivable. Both as a professional and as a person. You're done, I'm afraid." "Are you talking about the incident at the hotel? I thought you were in danger, so I..." "Shut up, making excuses as a man. How pathetic." As she was scolding me, the door opened and Mr. Thompson entered the room. "What's all this noise? I can hear it from outside. What are you angry about, Sierra?" This person took advantage of my unconscious state to humiliate me. Before I could explain the misunderstanding, Mr. Thompson interjected. "Hold on, Sierra. Maxwell was trying to help you. Tyler was there too, and even the paramedic said his quick response was crucial." Mr. Thompson's stern reprimand seemed to calm her down. "Maxwell, I'm truly sorry. Sierra is my only daughter, born when I was over 40, and it seems she's been brought up a bit spoiled. This is my fault, and I'm ashamed. Please forgive her." "What? Sierra is the daughter of Mr. Thompson?" Surprised, I looked at her, and she appeared to be on the verge of tears. "But you saw my body." "But I covered you with a towel, so no one else saw." As I explained, she burst into tears. When I asked Mr. Thompson, "What's the matter?" he began to speak in a soft voice. "When Sierra was just 5, She tried to help her mother by reaching for a kettle, but she accidentally knocked it over, causing severe burns on her stomach and thighs. Though the scars had faded over the years, they were still noticeable when she was naked. As a result, she had been too scared to go to the beach or pool and had never been in a relationship due to fear of her scars being seen. The scars had made her wary of love, and she threw herself into her work as a distraction. It's pitiful, really. Between you and me, I promoted her to a managerial position, hoping it would make her work more fulfilling. That was my decision. Then Sierra addressed Mr. Thompson. I don't want to be a manager. I know I don't have the capability for it. Everyone is wondering why I was promoted. I'm already at my limit. She broke down crying, leaving both Mr. Thompson and me at a loss. Whenever I visit the branch, I see Tyler and Maxwell working happily, and I couldn't help but feel envious. I wanted to work like that too, but given my position, I had to be strict. Tears streamed down her face unabated. You said it yourself, didn't you, that you hated me? Yes, I'm disliked by everyone, and the executives say I'm all about appearances. With a body like this, I can't even get married. My only option is to work hard. Saying so, she collapsed onto the sofa and burst into loud tears. Sierra, so that's why you were working so hard. If only you had told us sooner. How could I possibly say that? I know how you feel, Dad. I can't just say I can't do this job anymore. Her crying intensified. I'm sorry, Sierra. It's my fault for not realizing how you felt. I truly am sorry. Mr. Thompson apologized, placing a hand on her back. Seeing Sierra, who was always so strong, crying like a baby, shocked me. After watching her cry for a while, I felt an urge to comfort her and sat down in front of her. Sierra, do you know what this is? I took off my sock and showed her the scar on my right foot. When I was in high school, I confessed my feelings to a girl and was dumped within a week. I was so frustrated that I kicked a wall repeatedly and broke a bone. After that, I couldn't play soccer, which I love. I was so afraid of getting dumped that I still haven't been with a woman. Lame, right? As I began to share my story, she looked up from her tears. This car is smaller than yours, Sierra, but sometimes it causes me intense pain. That's why I sometimes ask Tyler to let me work indoors. The pain of a physical injury combined with emotional scars can be quite tough. I said with a light smile. Everyone has their own scars, they just don't talk about them. Hearing this, she apologized through her tear-stained face. Was that the reason you were in the office when I was around? I'm sorry. I thought you were just skipping outside work. I should apologize too. I never considered that you were being strict because you were holding back. I misunderstood you, Sierra. It's ironic though, how we both became timid about relationships for different reasons. Indeed, it seems we're quite alike. Sierra and I ended up laughing together. We then apologized to each other again. I apologized for my lack of consideration, and she for jumping to conclusions and causing a scene, for the embarrassment and panic she felt, and for not being able to thank me for helping her. And then, we shook hands, making amends. Watching us, Mr. Thompson spoke with a smile. It's good that you both cleared up your misunderstandings. However, Maxwell still needs to take some responsibility. Responsibility. Confused, I listened as Mr. Thompson suggested I come to the headquarters. Apparently, Tyler from the branch had mentioned how my support for clients was highly valued and trustworthy. Mr. Thompson then proposed that I come to the headquarters to lend my support. But I explained that the high client satisfaction was not just due to my efforts, but thanks to everyone at the branch. Mr. Thompson seemed disappointed, but also pleased, acknowledging that I understood the company's ethos. How about supporting my daughter then? What if you were to become my son-in-law? It seems you two are quite similar, after all. What are you saying, Dad? That's so sudden. Caught off guard by the turn of events, I found myself finding her pretty as she blushed and retorted at Mr. Thompson. A year after the incident at the Hot Springs Resort, I was holding a modest wedding ceremony with family and close colleagues. My partner was Sierra, the former branch manager whom I once disliked. The reason is, Sierra is currently the section manager of the branch we're in. She's now the manager at our branch because, after the incident in the president's office, she pleaded with Mr. Thompson to return to a regular employee position. Unable to demote a branch manager directly to a regular employee, Mr. Thompson compromised by making her a manager at the branch. And it was Tyler who got promoted to branch manager at the headquarters. A well-deserved promotion recognized by the executives for his abilities. But Sierra didn't care about any of that. She was happy working with us every day. After reconciling in the president's office, Sierra and I met several times, agreeing to stop being timid about relationships and to acknowledge our weaknesses while encouraging each other to take a step forward. One day, I asked Sierra about that hot spring trip. She explained that the Hot Spring Resort Hotel was a place of healing for her, and she often visited alone. That day, she and Tyler went to discuss a new project for the travel agency, aiming to come up with a plan that would ensure the survival of the branch amidst company downsizing due to economic hardship. Tyler and Sierra have been childhood friends, and he's the only colleague she can vent her frustrations to. So it seems that she sometimes sneaks away to consult with Tyler instead of with other people. Even though I haven't asked, she keeps telling me that there's nothing going on between her and Tyler. Even when I say I understand, she keeps insisting. So when I hug her tightly, she finally quiets down. When we first started dating, there were days like that. And then we decided to live by supporting each other. To fulfill Sierra's wish of having the ceremony at the place that brought us together, and to do it in our 20s, we went to consult at that hotel that I helped Sierra. When the two of us apologized for what happened a year ago and expressed our wish to have our wedding there, the owner and the head chef were delighted to take it on. On the wedding day, during his speech, Ryan discusses how the trouble at this hotel has led us to where we are today. Me, usually unassuming, took calm command and saved a life with the correct CPR technique. As a colleague and a friend, he respects me for being reliable when it matters most. And Sierra, who chose such a person, is truly a wonderful woman. But at first, he really hated Sierra. You know, life is full of surprises. Laughter erupts in the venue. Ryan, you didn't have to say that. As I glare at Ryan, Sierra pinches my leg and whispers, "Oh, you hated me, huh?" Sierra asks with a mischievous tone. "Well, not that I hated you, but more like you were difficult for me. But now, I love you." "Are you sure?" "Sure, I love you, Sierra." It's embarrassing to say that here. Geez, you're silly. As we exchange these words, we realize the venue has gone completely silent. "Max, the mic is on, so everyone heard your conversation." Looking at the mic on the table, I see the switch is turned on. Uh-oh, this could work for our next project. Why not have your wedding at a memorable place? Sounds like a good plan, right? Sierra starts talking hurriedly, with a flushed face. Is this still about work? As Alex starts laughing, the whole venue is enveloped in laughter. Embarrassed, we look at each other's red faces, cherishing the happiness surrounded by our dear friends. A small stream of water seeping out of the mountains eventually becomes a river and finally paddles out to the ocean, while the water flows to enrich the mountains and create a beautiful green mountainous Sierra, giving birth to new life. Life goes on like that. Thinking this in my heart, I firmly grasp Sierra's hand under the table. She looked a bit worried, lowering her voice. Repaying debts must be tough, right? And then she gave me a smile. Her smile seemed almost pitying to me. My name is Jack Anderson. I'm turning 45 this year. All right, you look good today. I spoke to Sunny, the parakeet, who seemed to be lacking energy yesterday. Its feathers were glossy. Think you can come out in front of the visitors today? As I spoke further, Sunny chirped in response. Taking it as a yes, I smiled and took it out of the cage, leading it to the free-range area. The glass-walled free-range area is designed to prevent birds from crashing into the glass by using colorful stickers and hanging plants and mobiles from the ceiling, offering a panoramic view of the park. My wife, Sophia, walked into the cafe where anybody can play with rabbits, and my middle school daughter, Olivia, was battling with pony droppings. I could hear the complaints about the smell, which made me chuckle a bit. My elementary school son, Mike, was not helping at all, just running around the park. This is Anderson Family Petting Zoo, a small petting zoo I run. The park features playgrounds for children, petting areas with goats and ponies, a cat cafe, a rabbit cafe, and our famous gelato ice cream shop. And this bird cafe is a recent addition, my favorite spot. Looking around the park, my face breaks into a smile. Hard to believe it was on the brink of bankruptcy about 20 years ago. As I reminisced, Sophia looked over and waved at me. Though she had a few more laugh lines, she looked the same as she did 20 years ago, triggering my memories. Back then, I was a high school senior, dating Sophia. It was a place where a 45-minute drive would get you to the city center, but back then, with only a bicycle as my means of transportation, it felt like the middle of nowhere to me. There was a high school within a barely manageable biking distance, and most of the local kids went there. Sophia and I were childhood friends from elementary school, so growing up together almost like siblings, the idea of dating felt strangely out of place. One day during my senior year of high school, my father fell sick, and the financial state of the park, which had been his responsibility, came to light. The park didn't seem to attract many visitors, and it was in much more debt than I had thought. It seems that debts were covering expenses like employee salaries and animal feed. Learning about this situation, my mother suggested closing the park, which was a shock to me. I begged her to wait and felt out of sorts from that day on. Even if I were to take over, I was still a high school student. I knew nothing about managing a business, and I at least wanted to graduate from high school. During this troubled time, Sophia was there for me. She was concerned about my lack of energy and was always by my side. Sophia and I used to play in the park a lot when we were in elementary school. The employees treated us like their own children and were very fond of us. When I shared the situation of the park and my father's condition with Sophia, she took it very seriously and offered her advice. Sophia, who had been pretty since elementary school with her well-proportioned face, had grown into a mature and beautiful woman with clear eyes by the time she reached high school. Sophia was beautiful and always there for me gently, and before I knew it, I was in love with her. I confessed my love to her in front of the rusty bell in the center of the park. Sophia chuckled and said, "Let's clean up this bell together. I don't want this bell to be the bell of my memories of Jack's confession of love to me." I remember I was confused as to what was going on because he said that before answering my confession. Then, turning to face me, she said earnestly, "I never imagined things would turn out this way with Jack, but watching you ponder over the park recently, I started to think you were so cool. I was very embarrassed and shy to be told in such a serious manner." Then Sophia said, "I love this park too and don't want to lose it. I thought that Jack's actions to take care of this park is kind of wonderful," and she playfully stuck out her tongue. Her gesture was so adorable that I couldn't resist and gave her my first kiss, even though we had just become lovers. From then on, Sophia and I started dating. Being friends from elementary school, our relationship hasn't seen any dramatic changes. After confessing my love to her, I declared to my parents that I wanted to take over the park. My mother decided to hold the fort as the representative until I graduated from high school. Naturally, the main topic between Sophia and me became the park's reconstruction, and far from sweet romance, we often clashed. I loved the interactive aspects of this park. That's why I wanted to continue targeting children and keep it going as it was. I was conservative. But Sophia thought differently. She argued that the number of children was decreasing, leading to fewer customers. Therefore, she insisted that we should target young people, the elderly, in the local community. Our initially hesitant arguments heated up over time, eventually leading to incessant fights. Then one day, Sophia, who had been saying we'd work together on the park's reconstruction seriously after graduating high school, decided to change her path and go to college. I lashed out at Sophia. I called it a betrayal. She was abandoning a nearly bankrupt park to go to the city. Sophia denied it. She said she just wanted to broaden her perspective. She was desperate to learn about management and help the park. But I, who had thought we'd rebuild the park together after graduating, couldn't shake off the feeling of being betrayed. I became indifferent when it came to discussions about rebuilding the park, and I didn't want to hear Sophia's opinions, so I neglected our communication. On the other hand, Sophia, who had made a sudden change in her plans, started studying hard. As a result, the opportunities for Sophia and me to meet naturally decreased. I think our relationship naturally faded away. Without talking much to me, Sophia went off to the university she got into in New York. The sense of loss I felt from Sophia's absence was immeasurable. Even without much conversation or seeing each other, just knowing Sophia was in the same town made me feel less lonely. But then, Sophia left the town. Feeling lonelier than I expected, I tried to contact Sophia several times. But then I realized I couldn't go on like this. I rejected Sophia's opinions without having a solid stance of my own, and I labeled her forward-looking decision to attend university as a betrayal. And now, for me to want to reach out to Sophia after all this time, even harboring a faint hope for reconciliation. Only after losing Sophia did I realize that such an idea was utterly unacceptable. I started to take action to rebuild the park. From that resolution, 4 years went by. It was about 20 years ago from now. I received an invitation to the high school reunion. Almost everyone in town had left for jobs or further education. The reunion was planned as a milestone for those who had gone to college to celebrate their graduation, and the venue was a stylish restaurant in the city center, an hour's drive away. Usually surrounded by animals and older employees, I rarely ventured into the city, and it's very rare for me to enter such a stylish restaurant. I remember being a bit nervous and hesitant to enter. At the same time, I was excited at the possibility of meeting Sophia. My purpose for attending the reunion was because I wanted to see Sophia. We hadn't been in touch for all 4 years. I was nervous, wondering what kind of woman she had become. I mustered up the courage and opened the door to the restaurant. My eyes immediately caught sight of Sophia. Sophia, dressed in a light pink dress, was an incredibly beautiful woman, to put it modestly. She was beautiful in high school, but going to the city must have polished her even more. For me, who had been doing nothing but work in the countryside, she was dazzlingly bright. I chatted with classmates I hadn't seen in a while. While it was enjoyable, I felt a bit tired and settled into a corner seat. Next to me, a flash of pink caught my eyes. It was Sophia, in her pink dress. She cheerfully started a conversation with me. "Long time no see, how have you been?" Then I vaguely responded, like, yes, well. I imagine I must have looked very insecure and unreliable. Sophia looked a bit worried and lowered her voice. Must be tough dealing with the debt repayment, isn't it? Then, she gave me a smile. Her smile seemed almost pitying to me. My spirits began to sink, but somehow I managed to hold on midway. Surely, if it were me back in high school, I would have felt so dejected that I might have just stormed out of there. But I was different now. I responded with a beaming smile to Sophia, who gave me a slightly troubled grin. Well, I don't know. When I said that, Sophia looked a bit puzzled. Then, I extended my right hand towards her, as if asking her for a handshake. Stop by the park next time you're back home. Sophia stubbornly did not stop by the park when she returned home. Several years after an awkward breakup, Sophia, who is stubborn according to her mother, has decided not to show up at the park while she is studying at the university. Her mother tells Sophia that the current situation at the park is improving, but she says, I am going to enjoy it after graduation. Then I was going to surprise Sophia by rebuilding the park before she graduated from college. I'm so sorry for what I did when in high school. I was being childish. I think I've grown up more than I was 4 years ago. So I hope you'll come to the park someday. I said everything that I wanted to say and left the venue. Sophia was left there, stunned. When would Sophia come? I imagined the look on her face when she would visit the park. With a positive mindset, I headed home. To my surprise, Sophia visited the park the day after the reunion. My attitude had left her restless, unable to stay put. Sophia, who found me cleaning around the park, stared at me with her large eyes, even larger than usual. And the first thing she muttered was, "The parking lot, it was full." Her voice trembled, unable to tell if she was happy or shocked, which made me laugh unintentionally. Yes, there's an event today. Hearing that, Sophia looked around the park curiously. There were so many cars, but nobody is around. To Sophia's plain, simple question, I replied, "Everyone's getting changed over there right now." I pointed towards a building to the right of the reception. It's usually a play area for kids on rainy days, with toys and picture books. Getting changed. Sophia tilted her head in confusion, and just then, people in various outfits started pouring out of the building, scattering throughout the park. And as if on cue, photographers began snapping photos of them. A girl with silver curls struck a pose next to the pony pen. The sound of shitters echoed in response. Over there, in front of the bell I named the Bell of True Love, a couple was posing, and the sound of shitters echoed there as well. Seeing Sophia looking bewildered, I explained, "Today, we're hosting a cosplay event." Hearing this, Sophia muttered, "Cosplay." It seemed like her thoughts were still catching up. After Sophia left the town for college, the first thing I decided to do was to tidy up the neglected areas. The park is about a 45-minute drive from the city center. It was supposed to be a park where people could take a short drive with their kids on a day off. But lately, the park had been neglected, and upon closer inspection, I found that the sign guiding people to the entrance had fallen over. This is no way for people to come around. No wonder only regulars come here these days. I wanted this park to be a place where everybody can casually come with anybody if feeling like going out for a bit. We started with a small place and worked our way up. Mowed grass near the entrance and installed new signage. Although it was a simple sign, I've always been good at art, and the finished sign was lavishly praised by the local ladies. I thought it turned out quite lovely myself. Next, I turned my attention to the rusty bell where I had confessed my love to Sophia. I wondered if I could turn it into an attraction of some sort. It was a bit embarrassing, but this was where I gave her my first kiss. I wanted to make it a romantic spot if possible. After refurbishing and beautifying the bell, One of the employees suggested, "This is great. Why not call it the Bell of Love or something?" So, I named it the Bell of True Love and came up with a tagline, "Couples who kiss here will be bound together forever." This then got featured in a statewide information magazine. And that's when the turning point came with a phone call. "Would it be possible to take wedding photos at your park? We'd also like to feature them in our brochure." I was as stunned as if I had been hit on the head by this inquiry from a wedding venue. Was this what Sophia meant when she said she wanted to attract young people? I agreed to host the wedding photo shoot, only ensuring it wouldn't stress the animals. Then the venue and I worked together to increase the number of photo spots. The brochure exposure had a tremendous effect, and I actively pursued various photo events afterward. We even started hosting school entrance ceremony photo shoots. Come to think of it, I had my photo taken at the park for milestones during my childhood. It was always a place where people wanted to take commemorative photos. Gradually, as the number of visitors increased, we could see the end of the debt my father had accrued, and there was more financial leeway for employee salaries and the care of the animals. I briefly shared how things got this way with Sophia. Sophia listened intently to my explanation throughout. And when I finished, tears welled up in her eyes rapidly. As I was taken aback, Sophia hugged me softly. When I was stumped by her sudden hug, Sophia said, "You did a great job on your own." I felt like crying too. It was not alone. The longtime employee helped me by researching current trends, and my parents supported me by accepting my reform proposal willingly. Plus, the mowing and the road maintenance couldn't be done without help of many people in town. Indeed, the park's reconstruction was a result of the entire community's collective effort. People in town helped me, partly because they saw me changing signs and mowing grass by myself and were impressed, but mostly because of my father's influence. My father has always truly loved this town and was passionate about the beautification of the town as well as the park. He was a volunteer firefighter and actively helped out during festival days. As a child, I couldn't understand why he put so much effort into things that didn't bring in money. But no good deed goes unrewarded. What my father was doing came full circle and came back to the park and then to me. I've come to want to give back to the town, just like my dad did it, and that's what I built. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I wriggle out of Sophia's embrace and point to a building. It's a glass-enclosed structure, much like a sunroom. This area is mild and snow-free in winter. Yet, the town's elderly, active in summer, tend to stay indoors during the winter months. I wanted it to be a place where people have a rest and enjoy chatting in the building when taking a stroll in cold winter. It was a greenhouse-like building that I built with this in mind. Eventually, we could plant lots of plants and maybe even have small animals spend some time there. As I shared this dream with Sophia, her eyes sparkled brightly. While studying business at university, I too started to dream of giving back to our community someday. That led me to take on 2 part-time jobs. And guess what one of them was? Sophia said with a playful grin. With no hints, I was at a loss. As I pondered, Sophia, still smiling, revealed a cat cafe. I was working at a cat cafe, the cafe where anybody could play with cats. How about letting the cat loose in that greenhouse? Sophia suggested further, and what if we had more, like rabbit cafes or other animal-themed cafes? Wouldn't it be amazing for everyone to relax in spaces dedicated to their favorite animals? Feeling overwhelmed by the scale of her vision, I hesitated. We certainly don't have the budget for all that, causing Sophia to pout in displeasure. Quickly shifting back to her playful demeanor, she teased, "And the other part-time job I had was at..." As I waited for her to continue, she said with a burst of smiles, "Gelateria, ice cream shop. It was popular with lines out the door. I desperately asked the manager to teach me the recipes because I thought this is the one to bring back to town. How impressive, and you're always so proactive. But surely, the manager didn't because the recipes must be a trade secret, right? As I pointed this out, Sophia flashed a V sign, beaming with satisfaction. Guess what? I got permission to open a second branch right here in my hometown. I'm truly impressed by Sophia. She's always been proactive and full of innovative ideas. But then, I questioned, that's incredible, but how does that help fund animal cafes in the park? Sophia's smile quickly turned to an exasperated frown. What? You're so slow. Let's open the second branch here in the park. I rolled my eyes even more at the idea. We'll have a fireplace to make it enjoyable even in winter, as same as in summer. A fireplace right in the middle of the eat-in area. Isn't that wonderful? It seems Sophia's idea of opening gelato shop is already well developed. Oh wait, you mean? As I pondered, Sophia gazed at me with a hopeful look. Sophia, are you coming back here? Sophia furrowed her brows again as I spoke. I told you I'd come back. I just went to study for 4 years for the sake of our town, she said. Seeing Sophia sulk, I pressed on. You're coming back to the park too, right? She nodded quietly. I mustered up some courage. Would you come back to me as well? Though I tried to be brave, my words came out ambiguously. Sophia seemed to sense the same ambiguity. What do you mean by that? Sophia's moist eyes pierced from me. Come on, you tell me. Leaning a little closer to me, Sophia spoke in a sultry tone. What do you want with me? I gulped. Faced with Sophia's rapid questions, I made up my mind. Please, would you be my girlfriend again and support this park with me? As I said this, I extended my right hand. I remember this scene from an old TV show. A man goes up to the woman and confesses his feelings to her, extending his right hand. If her answer is yes, she takes his hand. If no, she just doesn't and says I'm sorry, that kind of thing. It probably lasted less than a second, I think. But for me, that time felt incredibly long, as if my heart was about to leap out of my mouth. And then, my right hand was wrapped in a soft one. Of course, it was Sophia's hand. Yes, I'm so happy. I want to give back to this park and this town, with you for sure. When I looked up, Sophia was crying. Tears were falling from my eyes, too. Sophia's hand that I let go of when in high school because of my sneaky thoughts. This time, I won't let it go. As I was immersed in these emotions, I sensed Sophia's confusion. Looking around, Sophia and I were surrounded by photographers. Surprised, my tears retracted. As someone working behind the scenes at a cosplay event, I had been caught up talking with Sophia and neglected the event. Feeling guilty and anxious, a woman in a valiant heroine's costume with blonde hair took Sophia's hand. Where we were taken to, without our thoughts catching up, was in front of the bell of true love. Kiss here for the first time and you'll be bound together forever. I heard the slogan I had come up with from somewhere, and I gave her a kiss for the second time. I pleaded with the photographers not to post it on social media. Oops, I got lost in the memory there. Before I knew it, almost 30 minutes had passed. The elderly are early risers. I need to get ready quickly, or the customers will start arriving. I hurriedly headed towards the gelato shop. One muscat, please. As I told the woman, she turned around and said, that'll be $4.50 with the employee discount, presenting her palm. It was my wife, Sophia. While I was lost in my memories for 30 minutes, Sophia had finished up at the Rabbit Cafe and started getting the gelato shop ready for opening. I got the gelato and take a bite. The cold sensation and the rich sweetness of the muscat burst in my mouth. This is really good. only 2 more weeks. Too bad it's only for a limited time. I'm sure we'll have a lot of customers today. When I say this to Sophia, she frowns. I can't wait for this period to be over. Sophia's gaze shifts towards my belly. I make an awkward face and pinch the flesh on my stomach. Sophia, although exasperated by my gesture, smiles. In 2 weeks, we'll have the sweet potato parfait, so no time for me to lose weight, I say with a grin, and Sophia glares at me. The popular winter-only menu item is a sweet potato parfait, hot sweet potatoes and cold gelato on top. I was worried gelato wouldn't be popular in winter, but we have customers who even come just for this dessert. Thanks to Sophia's seasonal gelato creations, our sales have been very strong all year round. As I'm smiling at the rich sweetness of the gelato, the shop door opens forcefully. It's not fair, Dad. I want some gelato too. That's our daughter, Olivia, causing a fuss. $4.50. Sophia, with her palm outstretched mercilessly, and Olivia, tugging at my sleeve. Olivia had been a big help since the morning. As a reward, I place some coins in Sophia's hand. I'm tired. I'm definitely not taking over the park after this. Olivia, eating her gelato, sits on a bench. Aren't you guys tired too? You were patrolling the town last night, right? I can't believe it. All that work and no pay. Hearing this, Sophia and I look at each other and smile. Olivia looks bewildered. You'll see someday. As I say this, Olivia's expression becomes even more puzzled. Patting Olivia on the head, I say, all right, it's time to open, and step out of the gelato shop. The slightly chilly air pierces through my body. Today, Anderson Family Petting Zoo will surely be filled with many smiling faces again. The animal cafe that Sophia envisioned started with a cat cafe and gradually expanded to include a rabbit cafe and recently, the bird cafe I always wanted to open. I love parakeets. These cafes don't charge an entrance fee. We want the townspeople to use it as a casual place to chat, only paying for their drinks. But thanks to the regulars who visit every day to care for the animals lovingly, the business is doing well. Of course, we have no shortage of visitors from outside the town coming specifically to see their favorite animals. The many rules we set for the animals' sake are strictly followed by all visitors, and when the animals are tired, they can rest in the back. In the central plaza, children play, and depending on the pony's mood, people flock to the pony riding experience. The animals' houses are set to a comfortable temperature all year round, and it's a place where you can have fun even on rainy days. I think this park has become a place where everybody can casually come with anybody if feeling like going out for a bit. This space I dreamed of has expanded. Now not only locals, but also school children from neighboring towns use it annually for field trips and excursions. I enjoy guiding them, thinking that maybe one of these kids will become a future employee. It's a space where families, employees, townspeople, and people of all ages enjoy themselves with smiles. Standing in front of the bell of true love, I murmur, I wonder if I am able to manage to give something back. Then, Sophia's voice comes from nearby, yes, you are. It seems she was next to me while I was getting sentimental. Am I taking good care of you as well, Sophia? To this, Sophia turns to me with a beaming smile. I almost instinctively go in for a kiss, then remember it's early morning. Sophia, who didn't miss my behavior, quietly chides me, you did last night, didn't you, making me blush. It was after a patrol last night. Even though we've been married for 15 years and it's been over 40 years since we met, I still find my wife incredibly dear. Looking up, I see the townspeople in the distance. The first visitors today will be Ryan and Karen. It's going to be lively, I murmur to myself. My lips relax into a smile. Today is bound to be another fun day.